Hello everyone. How are you? My name is Mustafa Akben. I am the Director of AI Integration and Assistant Professor of Management at Business School. As you may know that we have been organizing these AI Research Network series for a while, and we host great researchers. One of the purpose of this research network series, create an interconnected group of people that can advance AI research and share and cross-pollinate their findings. Importantly, as an outcome of this research network series last year, by working with Sagun Giri, our AI coordinator, and Eric Hall, our assistant provost, we just put an AI research grant team, and we just pursue a couple of different grants. One of the grants was the recent FIPSE Education Department grants. And side note, Meghan was our external evaluators, and we were very happy. Another side note, we receive feedback on these extra grant submission, and Meghan's part is one of the highest scored one. So today I'm honored to introduce Meghan. We are pleased to welcome Dr. Meghan Manfra, professor in the Department of Teacher Education and Learning Sciences at North Carolina State University, and the faculty director for AI literacy in Data Science and AI Academy. An Elon alum from the class of 1998, she also serves as a research fellow with the UNC Center for Information Technology and Public Life. Dr. Manfra's work focuses on action research, K-12 media, AI literacy, misinformations, integration of digital technologies into social studies educations. She has received support from organizations including Spencer Foundations and the Library Congress, and is author and editor of leading books in social studies research. Her scholarship has appeared in many different books and journals. It's not here, there's not space to list all of them. And please join me welcoming Dr. Meghan Manfra.
How's that? Sound good? Great. Well, thank you all for joining me. It's a real privilege to be able to come back to campus as an alum, and then with this collective work that we're doing around AI literacy. And we're going to try again on that grant, right? Okay, yeah, so next time. So before we get started, just I would like to make this as interactive as possible. I know you're eating, but I have a quick quiz for you, a Mementi quiz. If you have your phone, you can use the QR code there. And it wasn't just a single telescope that captured it or a single scientist, but rather hundreds of researchers around the world. So this is just a very short 3-minute video.
After more than 10 years of planning,
Yay!
$50 million, and the combined brain power of over 200 international scientists,
Attention, attention, doors and roof will be opening.
Atento guardia de control, Apex 2.
finally, the time comes to try and make an image of a black hole.
This has been a huge process, a very, very careful process. And the imaging team is now getting the first set of data they can use to make a photo of a black hole.
It's really exciting. We just got the data, and that's, what we've been waiting for many years, so it's a pretty exciting time for us.
This is the moment when we finally get to see what a black hole might look like.
Each member of the team loads the data and starts running their algorithms.
Are we doing this?
Let's see it.
Okay, ready, set, go, going. We have her on the Dropbox.
The algorithms are producing some tantalizing images.
This is very early stages. This is exploratory surgery.
patient is on the table, we've opened the patient up, we're looking inside, we're trying to find out what we see.
Each member of the team needs to zero in on one consistent image.
That is interesting. Whoa.
I'm getting something pretty similar, a little bit.
And with the data for the black hole M87, one image soon becomes clear.
I see a circle-y feature.
So this particular participatory design challenge, of course, was spread around the world. So if you think about the coordination it would take, the building of trust, the notion of going across disciplines. So Dr. Katie Bowman, who they reference there, has a TED Talk in which she says that prior to this work, she knew very little about black holes. But what she did know about was machine learning and computer vision, really. And so bringing that to this team of astrophysicists from around the world, they were able to link telescopes from all of these different locations. And so again, the collective here, that participation seems what really moved the needle in terms of this breakthrough. Similarly, the Human Genome Mapping Project brought together scientists, in this case, thousands, so at scale. But one of the things that I think is really sort of important to its success was this ELSI, or the Ethical, Legal, and Social Implication Research Program. So rather than this merely being a scientific or biological project, they knew to engage ethicists and philosophers and social scientists. So why these examples? Well, I think that they kind of point to some of the complexity of the work that we are engaging in, where almost every facet of life, of social life perhaps, of educational institutions are certainly going to be impacted by AI. So this is an ethical, we've talked about cognitive challenges perhaps. There's also issues around equity and access here. And so I really think that in order to meet this moment, to not simply just be reactive, but to really have agency, it is to engage in these participatory approaches. So in other words, sort of action research at scale. So I'm encouraging us in this time we have together this afternoon to kind of think differently, not just about the tools and the technical aspects, like what can AI do, but what are the problems we're trying to solve? And when we start there, I think we drive our use of technology in ways that will affirm what we value, what our learning goals are, and our outcomes. So we're going to use a very simple framework from Action Research, the Assess, Plan, Learn framework, to guide our work today. And we're going to break these down into steps. I'm going to try to do this a little bit of a workshop with you all so that you can kind of reflect on where you are and maybe things that you can bring back to your programs or to your work. Action Research is situated very differently than traditional top-down approaches to research. In this case, it's really concerned with knowledge through and about action, right? So theory emerges from everyday practice and from the lessons of practice. And I think this is a really important and fundamental shift, particularly when we talk about adoption. So in Action Research, you're not trying to generate quote unquote buy-in, but you're actually starting with the people or starting with the stakeholders and engaging them in design and in the planning and implementation phases. So what we're going to do is kind of go through these three different stages, beginning with assess, plan, and then learn. We're going to understand where we are, and then moving from that sort of that calculus, then we'll move on to planning, thinking about the design challenge ahead of us, and then talking about ways that we can learn as we iterate. So in the assess phase, this is a very high level approach to understanding kind of the water we're swimming in, right? So what is happening here when we're talking about AI in education? And it seems like every day there's new headlines. And of course, headlines are often attention grabbers, right? And it's sometimes hard or difficult for us as educators to separate hyperbole from the truth. We also have a lot of information, including from people here at Elon, about fears educators have about AI technology and what it might do to our students. In particular, their critical thinking skills, their ability to problem solve, whether or not they're offloading too much cognitively. This is a recent study that just came out from College Board, and one of the things that's kind of difficult to see from the back that I find really fascinating, though, is if you see at the top, those are the various disciplines represented by faculty, and you kind of can see patterns in terms of the disciplines and areas of concern. So maybe you see more social scientists, or more fearful of plagiarism and dishonesty, more concerned perhaps with environmental concerns than others. And so kind of again pointing to that really the complexity here and the way in which there's definitely not a one-size-fits-all top-down approach that will work across these. And this is that same or similar graphic, just told a different way, where you're looking at the level of confidence of faculty in leading or guiding AI use in the classroom. So again, quite a skew. We're sort of really in this early stages of adoption, and that makes sense, but we're also looking for direction, and we're engaged in this sort of cooperative challenge. Those statistics bear out when we look at K through 12 education as well. This survey is from 2023, so it probably needs to be updated. It's from the Pew Research Center, in which they asked teachers, K through 12 teachers, about their perceptions of AI in the classroom. And again, you see that there's quite a bit of sort of separation here between almost like an equal mix of benefit and perceived harm. Here you have two side-by-side graphics, which I think are really helpful. So on the left is 2023, and here on the right is more recent. This was taken from the fall. And just, although there are different categories presented here, you do see that there is a tremendous increase in the number of students reporting using AI tools, for instance, to search for information. And so we're seeing sort of a rapid acceleration in their adoption among young people as well. And then finally, kind of returning here, how well is our school prepared to use Gen AI tools? Again, this isn't just here at Elon, but when there's survey of 1,000 faculty, you see again that there's a sense that, so there's adoption by the students and a lack of preparation on the part of educators. So where are we going to enter into this gap? So what faculty at other universities or administrators are doing, sort of famously, Purdue University just added a graduation requirement for generative AI or AI working competency. Here at Elon, from an outside in, I see you all having a multifaceted approach, which is pretty typical across higher education, where we see a variety of approaches, for instance, identifying key pillars, offering policy, providing ethical training, and on the right-hand side, really thinking about the type of professional development for faculty and teachers, and then the way in which we assess student learning. So the conversation now is shifting maybe less away from cheating and plagiarism towards thinking about how better to assess what our students learn and what they need. So one of the things that, kind of going back to this participatory approach, I think is really important to highlight here, is that while there are a variety of frameworks out there, often these frameworks provide, common language, but they may risk not being really fitting the context. And so that's, again, what's so encouraging about the work you're doing here, where you're really thinking about how this connects with your strategic plan at Elon and the way in which you work with students. So to those ends, I want to turn this back to you and thinking about outside in or inside out, starting with what our own reflection is, sort of our own assumptions around AI tools, and then also turning our gaze outward. So you have some Post-it notes on your table. And what I'd like you to do is already start to surface where cognitive effort is already shifting. Are there places in your work where you could use AI tools for routine, repetitive tasks and protect time or space for deeper learning or thinking? And also, where is human judgment or decision-making still essential? So again, on the Post-it notes, you could answer this on each on a separate Post-it note or on two halves of the note. And then we're going to do an activity together as your group, okay? So your task right now is to jot down where you could use AI tools for routine, repetitive tasks, and where human judgment or decision-making is still essential. Do you need pens or pencils? I've got some. Yep, you can pass those around. Please feel free to grab some lunch since you just came in. Grab some lunch. Yeah. Okay, when everyone at your table has had a chance to jot something down, I want you to share these. And the best way to do this is if you just do sort of round robin style, share out what you think, where you think AI tools could replace routine tasks. And then after you've done that, where you think human judgment is still essential. You what? Okay, yeah, we're going to talk in a small group first, and then we'll talk out. Yeah. Okay, so you just got started talking, right? So how about one more minute? Did you finish up? Okay, so we can come together. We started there with our insight, our own insight and assumptions about practice, which is great. And so we're going to continue this conversation by next by thinking about what's happening out there in the world and how we need to prepare students here. So the next question, keeping going with your Post-it notes, the first question is, what will future employers be looking for that cannot be replaced by AI? And where might AI increase the value of uniquely human capacities in the workforce? So it's kind of the same question, it's stated two different ways. So what do you think are those things that future employees may be looking for that cannot be replaced, and where might AI increase the value of uniquely human capacities in the workforce? You can put all of these Post-it notes in the middle of the table too, once you're finished, and we'll look at them together. So similarly, as we did before, it's time to share among your table. And I'm curious if you can line up, are the same things that you identified on these things that future employees will look for, are they similar to those things that you said you cannot replace in your classroom? Compare across your responses. What'd you come up with? What'd you come up with for things that future employees will be looking for? All right, great. Thank you again for this conversation. So what we know about, for instance, labor economy, economics, this is a pretty famous study that came out and made people really worried when it did. It was, I think it was called something like Canaries in the Coal Mine. Stanford researchers who suggested that entry-level jobs would be replaced by AI tools. And so there's this question, how do we get students up to those level of expertise that are necessary to understand how to use these tools? And it also identified some disciplines, maybe like computer programming or customer service, where AI may be more prone or ripe for AI disruption. However, this study has been a bit challenged because of their methods they use, and then also the fact that it seems like the markets aren't bearing this out. So when we look at labor statistics, these jobs really aren't being displaced. The question is, what will we see in the longer term? What we are currently seeing, though, so this was a graphic run by a group called Lightcast, who looks at job postings. And in this particular case, what you can see, maybe from the back, are the black line is frequency in job postings. And so you see right up at the top, things like communications, management, problem solving, which I've just overheard you all talking about, are really some of those things that you have identified at these table groups as being really important pieces to the things that we think our students will need in the future. So the question then is, if we've assessed this landscape, how do we design environments that provide these skills and provide to our students or to our communities in which we work? Sometimes they're called soft skills, I like professional skills, but you see that all of these things really line up with just good teaching and learning too, right? This is what we know from the learning sciences about how students learn. And perhaps there's an opportunity here to think about the ways in which we can use tools or become even more crystal clear about the need to teach our students these skills. So moving on from the assessment phase comes the design phase. Here we're going to start by first, again, one more Post-it note, looking at your values, because I think one of the things that's very important here is that what we value, AI will prioritize, so the way in which we use it. And so the first question we have is we're thinking about planning or the design phase is to really surface your professional values. It's hard to do, but if you could jot down just one value. I have an example list. There may be other things that come to mind that aren't there. But what is a core value that drives your professional work? We're going to use this sort of model, a strategy for thinking about design. So in surfacing a value that is very personal to our work and deeply contextual, what we've done is we've moved beyond the technical to really begin to think about the larger social, ethical implications of the work that we want to do. So we have our one core value. And when you think about this, core value as being part of the design phase, then you might begin to very clearly think about or identify those things that you want to keep human. Okay, so what will you protect? Those things that you feel like you could delegate. So for instance, I heard at the back table, writing, authorship is really a deeply personal value, but maybe we can offload writing an abstract that distills that down. And then what are some of the things that we might reimagine entirely? So for someone who, for example, really values academic rigor and integrity, argument evaluation needs to be protected. But we can use these tools to help us summarize large portions of data. And then things that may need to be redesigned is the way in which we approach the research flow. What's responsible, or which pieces of this flow are responsible? So with that in mind, let's try this ourselves. So if you could, thinking about your value, what human capacity must remain central? So what is that thing that you're not going to offload? And then the second piece, or what task might you be able to delegate to the tool? And then the third, and I think this is the harder shift, what might we redesign about the process? Okay, does anyone want to share out with the big group what they came up with here? No one's making eye contact, I get it. So maybe we can talk about the process. What does it mean to take your values and then attach them to those things that you want to protect? What happened there? What was the move that you had to make? It's a core 1100 class? Okay, tell me. Oh, they don't talk, okay. Okay. So perhaps it's great. We can, it could be perhaps something that we can then return to as a larger group. So one of the pieces here is that we have lots of multiple data points. So as a collective, one of the things that might be a useful activity is to look for areas of similarity or difference across these Post-it notes, right? So what are the values that the group holds? And are there ways in which we can begin to maybe rank or think about these values being spread across different communities within the organization? Who can contribute to the support of these values? And then also thinking about the way in which our tools can make us better at what we want to do, what we hope to accomplish, and not just to for the sake of using those tools. And so some of the work that I've done and been a part of at NC State provides similar models that I think some of you have used here at Elon. So for example, I'm part of a group, this is our Office of Academic Innovation, and they created what they called an Academic Innovation Accelerator Program, which are small groups of faculty working together with a budget. In our particular group, we brought together 6 faculty from across the university. So we had researchers from computer science, engineering, our College of Humanities, as well as education. And we each conducted research in our own communities and programs using a similar pre and post survey of student AI literacy. And as a result, what we were able to determine, first of all, not very surprising, but there's disciplinary differences, right, in the way in which we define AI literacy. And those are important to keep. There's no reason to sort of squash that. However, we shared common values around human oversight, or what we came to call orchestration. So the way in which we're implementing AI across the curriculum, as well as ethical and relational awareness and transparency in our use of these tools. And as a result, we're able to develop some system understanding to really come to understand how we're defining AI literacy differently and similarly across campus. A second group that I had the opportunity to work with was sponsored by the North Carolina Business Committee on Education and Google.org. And what they've done is they brought together 20 K-12 teachers, mainly middle and high school teachers from across the state of North Carolina, for a year-long professional development. And when we asked them to reflect on their work and their experience, you see similar patterns to what we saw both at the university and then in some of the earlier data. So for example, they're beginning to play around with these cognitive shifts. So moving beyond the academic dishonesty debate to really thinking about how we can shift student thinking in the classroom. And really importantly, I wanted to point out that they found it extremely professionally empowering to be part of a community, building capacity together. So creating these participatory, design challenging spaces really does create an opportunity for us to grow as a collective. And so this is what I've been playing around with, and thanks to AI's help, thinking about if we're talking about an AI literacy ecosystem, just like the duck pond, what might that look like to think about it at an organization? You know, an ecosystem is only as strong as all of its members, right? And we need to think about the health of the ecosystem. So what's at play here? There's infrastructure, there's policy, but there's also individual student learning needs and faculty needs as well. So kind of thinking about how we might look at the broader ecosystem. So what I'd encourage you to do in the last sort of moments, this is on your walk back to your office, but I want you to think about, what problem are you trying to solve? Where's there a problem of practice, whether it's in your classroom, in your professional work, or other areas, and who are some people that you could convene to work with in that regard? And then what data might already exist. We have a lot of data out there in the world, but data's everywhere. I would argue that this type of work that we just did was a data collection tool. And then finally, what are opportunities to share and learn? So I really appreciated this opportunity to be part of this hub. This is exactly this sort of space that we need to create to share our ideas across disciplines and across so many different contexts. So I would love for you to reach out to me and connect with me either on LinkedIn, or there's my email at the bottom. And I really appreciate your attention, and thank you so much for today.